sarva-samsayah yat svayam bhagavan pritya dharmam ahari riraksisoh tava sandarsanadeva cchinna me sarva-samsayah yat svayam bhagavan pritya dharmam ahari riraksisoh tava sandarsanadeva cchinna me sarva-samsayah yat svayam bhagavan pritya dharmam ahari riraksisoh
tava sandarsanadeva cchinna me sarva-samsayah yat svayam bhagavan pritya dharmam riraksisoh
cchinna me sarva-samsayah tava your sandarsanad by sight eva only cchinna resolved me my sarva-samsayah all doubts yet inasmuch as svayam personally bhagavan your lordship pritya lovingly dharmam duty aho explained riraksisoh of a king anxious to protect his subjects. Memo to the Trump. Oh, excuse me. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now I have resolved all my doubts simply by meeting you. For your Lordship has very kindly and clearly explained the duty of a king who desires to protect his subjects. Report. By Srila Prabhupada. Manu described herewith the result of seeing a great saintly person. Lord Chaitanya says that one should always try to associate with saintly persons, because if one establishes a proper association with a saintly person, even for a moment, one attains all perfection. Somehow or other, if one meets a saintly person and achieves his favor, then the entire mission of one's human life is fulfilled. In our personal experience, we have actual proof of this statement of Manu. Once we had the opportunity to meet Vishnupada, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaja, and on first sight, he requested this humble self to preach his message in the Western countries. There was no preparation for this, but somehow or other he desired it, and by his grace, we are now engaged in executing his order. And it is by his grace that we are now engaged in executing his order. Repeat, emphasis. By which has given us a transcendental occupation and has saved and liberated us from the occupation of material activities. Thus it is actually a fact that if one meets a saintly person completely engaged in transcendental duties and achieves his favor, then one's life mission becomes complete. What is not possible to achieve in thousands of lives can be achieved in one moment if there is an opportunity to meet a saintly person. It is therefore enjoined in Vedic literature that one should always try to associate with saintly persons and try to disassociate oneself from the common man, because by one word of a saintly person, one can be liberated from material entanglement. To give immediate liberation to the conditioned soul, a saintly person has the power, because of his spiritual advancement, to give immediate liberation to the conditioned soul. Here Manu admits that all his doubts are now over, because Kardama has very kindly described the different duties of individual souls. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Tava sandarsanad eva cchinna me sarva-samsayah yat svayam bhagavan pritya dharmam aha riraksisoh Omaghyana Timidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sabhadantikam Mukam Karunivachalam Pangam langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Shri Gurun dinatadana Namasheshtamano api satiputram atra sarupam Rupam tasyagrajim urupurim maturim goshtavatim Radha kundam girivadamaho radhika madavasam Prapto yasya pratita kripiyo Shigurun tannatosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamadam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sadvadutam Purijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitam Sacha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatadine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratvije Namaha Nityananda Maham Naomi Sarvananda Kadam Param Harinama Param Devam Avaduta Shiromanim Panchatattvatpakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Surupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktigam. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindho, Dinabandho, Jagatpate, Gopisha, Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, Namostute, Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vishabhanu Sute Divi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Hantai Madalabala, Haridasya Vayo, Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparashat Pramodaha, Manam Tunoti Sahago Ganayostayo Yat, Pani Yasuya Vasakandana Kandamulahai, Matsamo Nasti Papatma, Napadadi Nakaschana, Puri Hare Pilajjame, Kimbrube Purushottama. Yuvatinam Tatayuni Yunam Chayavatavyata, Mano Bidabite Tadvam, Mano Me Ramatam Twai. Bhumaus Kalitupadanam, Bhumireva Balambanam, Tui Jatapadadhanam, Tvam Eva Sharanam Prabhu. Govinda Balabe Radhe, Parartiye Tamaham Sada, Tudiyam Iti Janatu, Govindo Mam Tvaya Saha. Radhe Vrindavanadishe, Karuna Mitavahini, Kripaya Tavapadabja, Dasyam Mayam Pridiyatam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi, Shri Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, here our conception of a saintly person is being refined. There's a gradation or a spectrum of spiritual advancement, and depending on the vision of the seer, persons who have taken up Krishna consciousness are seen according to their level of advancement or their level of attainment, Krishna consciousness. here, the level of saintly person that Swayam Manu was talking about is one who has actually seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one who is so qualified that he's become Krishna's agreed to become his son. You can't be the father of Krishna unless you are supremely qualified, the most qualified. Now, I don't want to give away the plot, but as this story unfolds, and Devahuti has accepted Kardama Muni as her husband, Devahuti is not an ordinary person. We should always remember this is at the beginning of the universe. This is the very beginning, of the creation. And the universe is not very populated. So when Devahuti became mature enough to be married, then Swayambhuva Manu had a task on his hands, because this woman was very qualified. So qualified that she was qualified to become the mother of God. So you have two persons, male and female, coming together who are both qualified to become the parents of God. So in our sentiment, we may sometimes think, the saintly person is one who, when you see them, you just automatically start to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, when you see them, first time. And there are personalities like that. I remember when Srila Prabhupada came into the airport, San Francisco, 1974, to attend the Rath Yatra. We all went out to greet him at the airport. And Srila Prabhupada he looked so big when he was sitting there speaking. And when you look at pictures of him, his head is huge compared to anyone else's. Even if it's not bigger physically, it's just takes over the photo. Have you seen that? Have you noticed that? Anyway, but physically he was diminutive. He was short, less than 5'5", and I think on his passport it said 5'3", something like that. Bengalis tend to be smaller in stature. And imagine how they felt when Lord Chaitanya came and he was 7'6", with arms that reached down to his knees. When he put his hands in the air like this, you could see it for a long way away, especially because all the other persons around him were, relatively much shorter. They always have, the short people standing in the front of the photo, so that the tall people don't get in the way so they can see their face in the photo. Anyway, so there was a rousing kirtan, right in the airport. I mean, we couldn't get away with this anymore. You can't even get in the airports some places, what to speak of have a kirtan, and throw flowers and sprinkle, rose water and, flowers everywhere and huge kirtan going on. But it was going on, and San Francisco airport, it's a big airport, busy, people coming and going to their flights and everything. And the crescendo was coming to a peak because, the right plane had landed and Prabhupada was on that plane and we all knew it, right? And then it was one more person and then another, and Prabhupada's not coming and everyone's getting anxious and the kirtan's reaching a feverish pitch out of separation. And then Prabhupada walks out. And I don't know what anybody else saw, but the room lit up. And it was a big room. The airport room, big room. And everybody, I swear to you on the Bhagavatam. Wait. Whatever you do, make a vow. Everyone stopped for a moment. There was an instant in which everyone just stopped and looked at Prabhupada. And he was just glowing and beaming and, greeting everyone. And, the flowers were falling. Kirtan was going crazy. And he was walking down out the way to the front of the airport. And it didn't last very long. As soon as that instant was gone, then everybody started to, go to where they were going and everything. But, this verse is saying this. There are people who, when you just see them, no matter who you are, they affect your life permanently. And, when all the memoirs come out of Prabhupada and you meet, different people who or devotees have met different persons who just happened to meet Prabhupada in, very, circumstantial seemed, incidents, and he would make a huge impression on them and permanently change something about them, about their thinking, about their perception, or whatever. But as I was saying, Kardama was so advanced that Vishnu appeared to him by his austerities. He was one of the very first rishis. He was more than a Prajapati, he was a rishi, and he had the capacity, full yogic powers. He could bring, the first rishis in the universe had the power to bring the Vedas and different branches of the Vedas and different developed parts of the Vedas into the atmosphere just by their meditation. Vyasadeva did that. When the Bhagavatam came into the Kali Yuga, do you remember in the first canto, he went into trance and he saw it. It just appeared to him all at once, all the verses, all 18,000 verses, and then he wrote it down. It's kind of like, we have examples of this even in secular world. Mozart, you heard of Mozart? Great musician, a great composer, and he said that his compositions would come into his mind already composed all at once, and all he had to do was write them down. And he said he couldn't write them down faster because before he got one done, another one would come into his heart. So this is real. This isn't some imagination. It isn't some story just to jack us up so that we'll have faith and we'll be able to behave properly or have the proper attitude. These things are real. They happen daily. So Devahuti was a princess, not just any princess. She was one of the first princesses in the universe. Not the first, but one of the first. And in those days, princesses, they didn't even put their feet on the ground. Did you know that? They were living in the greatest opulence you can imagine, and they had all marble floors and everything, so they didn't go out. This is why it was so amazing when Sita followed Ram into the forest, because they weren't accustomed to roughing it, So, unusual situation. You have Swayambhuva Manu, who's basically the first king of the world, of the universe. First Kshatriya. He was given the name Manu because he was the head human being. And it's the father's duty to get the daughter married. So he was looking for a daughter for his, a husband for his daughter. And he had already been told, Kardama had already been told by Vishnu himself that Swayambhuva will be coming there and granting him his desire, and this is very unusual. Everybody's all, you want to get married? What? It's like some kind of anathema or something, But here's Vishnu appearing to a sage, who's so advanced that he can see Vishnu face to face, and he wanted a wife. This is all in Krishna's pastimes. This is all Krishna's pastimes. We need saintly persons everywhere. Prabhupada said devotees should be everywhere. Not that they have to be in this particular ashram or that particular ashram, or in this situation or that situation. Of course, in the West, trying to start a movement that Prabhupada started to try to reawaken or revive some kind of culture. One time when Prabhupada was asked, what do you think of the Western civilization culture? Prabhupada said, that would be a nice idea. Because there wasn't any, there isn't any. We've all been raised as dogs and cats, basically. Premium on how much money you have and, what position you have in society, and mainly how much power you have. These are the things that delineate who's who, in the present day so-called culture, so-called civilization. And the better you are at the four sinful activities that cause you to be an animal, the more elevated you are. One time one of the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked this real big guy that he met in London, because, Prabhupada wasn't the only person that he asked to come to the West, but he asked him first, here it says, he asked him in our first in our personal experience, we have actual proof of this statement of Manu. Once we had the opportunity to meet Vishnu, Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and on the first sight, he requested his humble self to preach the message in the West. Well, that's special because the first thing he said to him was that, and later, as of course the pastimes unfolded, it was clear that he was the person who was meant to spread Krishna consciousness in the West. But there were 2 or 3 devotees that went first to London, and one of them asked the Marquis of Jetland, who's a big royalty in the UK, and he was a little cultured, so he said, Swamiji, can you make me a brahmana? And he said, yes, why not? And he said, so, what shall I have to do? He said, you just have to give up illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. And he immediately said, impossible. That's life. This is high royalty. Therefore Prabhupada said, yes, it would be nice if there was civilization and culture, in the West. And now, of course, the same happening in the East. So this is our duty. Our duty is to become saintly persons. And here in this purport, it's being described just how important it is and why. Because even if we're not on the level of saintly person that wherever we go, people start to chant Hare Krishna just by looking at us, if we are following the instructions of a person who is on that level, as I told you, I saw with my own eyes in public people reacting to Prabhupada in a way that was not usual, that I'd never seen it before and I'd never seen it since. If you're acting sincerely and strictly according to the desire and the instructions and the teachings of a person on that level, then you get that qualification. of being a saintly person. This is why we want to advance in Krishna consciousness. Now, again, not to give away the plot, but Kardama Muni, he had all mystic perfections. He was really advanced on all levels. He was qualified to see God face to face. He was qualified to have God as his son. He had all mystic perfections. And when Devahuti came and then they got married and then she started to live with him, she was a princess, never had her feet touch the ground, the earth. She was always in extremely opulent conditions with maidservants around, 100 maidservants around. I mean, she was, she was it then, in terms of females. And but she lived there with him in this cottage in the forest, and he was a sadhu in the true sense of the word, culturally. Matted hair, living in the forest, no amenities whatsoever, constantly engaged in meditation and offering oblations into the sacred fire, completely absorbed in spiritual life. Then what happened was, after a few one dead needs another dead. Hare Krishna. Okay, you're forgiven. May I be forgiven also. Hare Krishna. So then after years of living with Kardama Muni, and Kardama Muni, Vishnu knew what was in his heart. He wanted a wife. He wanted to enjoy. At the same time, he was pure. So after, years of living with him, Devahuti started to look a little strange for a princess. Her hair was all gnarled and she didn't comb it. She didn't have anybody to help take care of her, and she was serving him in the same way that he lived. She took that life. Women saints. And then it came time to conceive. And Kardama noticed that Devahuti, she was feeling difficulty. She was skinny and her body wasn't so voluptuous, wasn't maybe going to stimulate his instincts that he needed to have stimulated in order to conceive, and all of that. And so and she was lamenting, and he said, no, don't worry. And then he created out of his mind a mansion that was like a city that could travel anywhere, and it was most opulent with parks and gardens and 7-story buildings, and it was flying through the sky. It could fly through the sky, and it could go wherever she wanted. Marry the right guy, and then, and they indulged in sensual activities for a long time, even before they conceived. So a person who pick up the Bhagavatam and just comes right to that page, when they're doing that, they're going to say, what is going on here? This is supposed to be a spiritual book, and here's this yogi and princess, and they're, doing this. How is this possible? But he was a pure devotee. He was a pure devotee. He didn't become contaminated. The green, prenup, they have these things nowadays, prenuptial, do they have it? So when when they can't get along for some reason, then the prenup says, who gets what. So how degraded is that? How degraded is that? Anyway, it wasn't exactly prenuptial, but Kardama agreed as long as he could, after his children were born, that he could continue his spiritual principles and his spiritual sadhana. Very unusual situation. And then finally, he divided himself into, I think, 9, and impregnated Devahuti with 9 embryos, and she had 9 daughters. Was it 9 or 7? 9, I think, yeah. And then, Kardama said, okay, that's that, I'm off now, I'm going to go to the forest. She says, wait a second, you can't do that, you promised me enlightenment, it's your duty. So, I need a son. So then gave her a son, and it was Kapila Dev. And then she took up, and then Kardama left. And she stayed right there. She didn't go back to her father. She stayed right there in the forest. By that time, it's not in the area mentioned, but the ashram was beautiful, like a jewel in the crown of the forest they were in. I don't remember exactly what the name of it was. Do you remember? No. Anyway. So these are saintly people. Bindu Sarovar, yes, that's near the Saraswati. There's different Bindu Sarovars, where Lord Vishnu's tears created a purified body of water. There's different ones. This is in the Himalayas, I think. But the Saraswati was flowing at that time. Maybe it was in the western side of what is India now. So the lesson is, the bottom line or the moral of the story is that we can be saintly persons if we follow saintly persons. You can't be a saintly person just by agreeing to get initiated, but if you follow the instructions, if you do as you're told, and as you're asked to do, and also as your own spiritual proclivities and your spiritual advancement inspires you to do. I heard Gopi Puranadana Prabhu gave one very nice lecture. He was giving lectures in Russia, and there was a devotee there who refused to take any offerings from this one particular cook, because he said, I see a black halo around the person's head. A lot of mystics over there in Russia, or thinking they're mystics. I don't know what they really are. But anyway, but Gopi explained that even if we're not perfect, when they're altering, we're worshipping Radha and Krishna, very high service, very high, and we're chanting the holy names, and we're going out and meeting people and giving these books and attracting people to this movement, so they can start to take up this activity, these deep spiritual activities which make us eligible for spiritual advancement and eligible to see the Lord face to face. Depending on our vision, we will see the Lord more and more and more. Same Lord, same deity, but we will see the Lord more and more as we advance. So Gopi said, if this person who you think is whatever, is acting according to Srila Prabhupada's instructions, and is making the offering according to the instructions, then that's prasadam. Even if he may not be completely pure, even if his mind may not be completely transcendental. it's not that we become, it kind of ties in with your question last night. What about this idea that spiritual advancement comes like a lightning to the light with lightning? It happens simultaneously and, immediately. But there's a whole background of spiritual progress and a whole background of spiritual activities, that brings a person to that state. Isn't there a verse that says that if a person is chanting Hare Krishna seriously, then it's to be known that that person has already performed the Vedic rituals. He's already studied the Vedas in previous lifetimes. I mean, we should understand how fortunate we are. This gratitude is like the cornerstone of our house of bhakti, because we're being allowed to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is eternal. It's always been there in the material world, but it's the most elevated mantra because it's made of just names of Radha and Krishna. It's the most elevated mantra, and normally you have to, what's the word? There's a word for the activities you have to become purified, to be able to get diksha. Purashaya? Huh? Purascharya, yeah. These are activities that you have to do in order to be able to just take diksha or even chant the Gayatri mantra. But the Maha Mantra is the goal of all those mantras. It's the goal of all spiritual perfections. And when Lord Chaitanya came into the universe, he said, I order every living being to take the holy name of the Lord. And in this way, in effect, what he did was he initiated everyone in the universe. Even before they met their spiritual master and started chanting formally, we couldn't do that unless we got that benediction from Lord Chaitanya. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't get initiation. We have to get initiation to get plugged in to that sound vibration and get it. Anyway, we'll talk about that more tomorrow. When Haridas Thakur was tested by Maya Devi herself, you know about that pastime in Chaitanya Charitamrita? First of all, he was tested by a prostitute that was sent by Ramachandra Khan to make him fall down so that he could be embarrassed and fall down, and it would ruin his reputation because he was so envious. Everybody was offering him so much respect and he wasn't getting the same respect. This is the nature of material existence, material world. When we're envious, when we see somebody doing well, we feel bad. When we see somebody fall off a ladder, ha ha ha, we feel good. Like the seed of the sitcom, of the American sitcoms, everybody laughs as soon as somebody gets into a very awkward or strange situation. Huh? Yeah, so I was just reflecting on that. So anyway, he delivered the prostitute after 3 nights of chanting, her hearing his chanting all night, and finally she fell down and, surrendered, felt ashamed, revealed to him what the plot was. He already knew it, of course. And then again, Maya Devi personally tried to entice him. And he passed the test with flying colors. And then they both said, so you please initiate us. So what was his initiation? I ask you to chant Hare Krishna. That was the initiation. So Lord Chaitanya came and he said, I order every living being in the universe to chant Hare Krishna. And it's on that order that we can chant Hare Krishna. Otherwise, from our backgrounds, with our whatever, wouldn't be possible. So this is the Bhagavatam opens up our vision. It expands our consciousness that we can see different words that we are used to thinking about in different ways, broader and more expansive, and then we can begin to see the part that this movement plays, the part that we play in the movement, and how it can actually change the world, and it will change the world. When Arjuna asked Krishna to see the universal form, and he showed it to him, then Arjuna saw what was going to happen. He saw everything, past, present, and future, while he was sitting in one place. And then Krishna said, okay, so now you know what's going to happen, so stand up and fight. All you have to do is fight, and you will win. And I've already done this. All these people are going to be killed except for you, your brothers, and a few other people. It's already done. The battle of Kurukshetra is finished. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya, his words were, this movement will spread to every town and village. He doesn't ever lie, Krishna. He knows exactly what he's doing. It's going to take a while. It's going to take up to 5,000 years for this movement to become at its peak of influence in the world. It's a long time, 5,000 years. So out of infinite gratitude for having been able to contact persons who have contacted Lord Chaitanya, and it's only 11 generations. I mean, with us it's 12, but Prabhupada was the 11th generation from Lord Chaitanya. That means only 11 people from mouth to ear, heard the holy name. That's why sometimes our kirtans can be very, very powerful, very influential. People chant and dance like they've been doing it for a long time, sometimes in Harinam, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to stop now. And my last word is, we should all become saintly persons. Hare Krishna. May we all become saintly persons so that we can actually follow the liberated souls and influence others by our association to go forward in their spiritual lives. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Kardama Muni ki jai. Shri Devahuti ji ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
His Holiness Keshav Bharati Das Goswami Maharaj ki jai.
some different queens around Jagannath.
Не был телефон, у меня не был WhatsApp, у меня был просто телефон Юрий, старый телефон. Деревня. Но тоже. Хорошо, потому что соответственно I should probably take Prashant right now. So you want to be over in the kitchen like by 20 after.
Okay.
So that we can be serving.